Trixie writes a fanfic by And What I See Is Me. Secluded within the quiet walls of the Castle of Friendship, Trixie arranged the ink and parchment on Starlight's desk, preparing to write her masterpiece, after the trio of Trixie, Starlight and Sunburst had failed to win anything with their entry into Twilight's dialogue-only contest last year. Trixie had decided that the obvious solution was for her to write her next story all by herself. Obviously, her great and powerful talent for storytelling was being held back by her partner's focus on things like plot and story structure and basic spelling. Trixie knew that no pony actually cared about all that nerdy stuff and was sure she could write something far better without them. She was so eager to prove it, she'd even skipped work today in order to start writing. She was sure Starlight and Sunburst wouldn't mind. After all, this was way more important work she was doing. She set the quill to parchment and began to write the greatest and most powerful work of fiction that Equestria had ever seen. Daring Do and My Immortal Alicorn. Chapter 1. Daring Do was in a bind, literally. Strong ropes bound to her hooves and wings, courtesy of her hated rival Dr. Caballeron, as she leered menacingly at her, her eyes full of menace. Daring knew that she was in a lot of really deep trouble. Dr. Caballeron had certainly outsmarted herself this time, and there was nothing she could do to free herself from his grasp. Surely this was to be her end. Just as Daring Do was about to give up hope, she was saved by a great and powerful, mysterious alicorn who arrived just in time to save her. Daring and Dr. Cabarallon both stared in stunned silence as the alicorn easily beat up the doctor's goons, too stunned for words to say anything. Once the awesomely cool alicorn had finished easily beating up Dr. Canyonero's goons, she walked sexily towards the stunned ponies. The alicorn's ebony black fur and crimson red mane blew dramatically in the wind. Suddenly, Daring Do remembered hearing about this amazing pony, who was more powerful than all the princesses combined, but especially more powerful than Princess Twilight Sparkle. It was the great and powerful Styxie Coolamoon. The half-dragon, half-bat pony alicorn princess of cool magic stuff. Daring Do was saved. Styxie easily dispatched Dr. Cavalier de Ian with an epic beam of magic and dragonfire combined, and then untied Daring Do. Daring thanked the amazing and sexy Styxie, and then seductively approached her saviour, offering in a seductive voice to repay the alicorn with her body. Styxie coolly accepted the offer and let the Pegasus ravage her through the night. Trixie paused from her writing, taking a moment to collect her thoughts and calm herself down. Great and powerful though she was, even she was surprised by how well her story was coming along. She didn't need to pace herself if she wanted to keep this kind of output up long enough to tell the whole thing. She'd already written nearly 300 words, and she'd barely even been at it for 2 hours. She was worried whether she'd be able to keep up such a blistering pace for long, but for now she was too excited to stop. Taking a deep breath, she prepared to write the next part of her epic. Chapter 2. The next day, Styxie Coolamoon woke up in the morning after a long night making love with Daring Do. The Pegasus was still asleep, having been utterly satisfied with Styxie's amazing talent at sex. She was almost as good at doing sex as she was at doing magic, and she was 100,000 times better at magic than Twilight Sparkle. Getting out of bed, Styxie stretched sexily and spread her wings. She flew out of Daring's room, ready for another busy day saving Equestria and being amazing. Flying faster than 10 sonic rainbooms, Styxie was able to return back to her castle in no time. Styxie's castle was made of crystal, just like the castle in Ponyville, but it was much fancier crystal and also much bigger. Plus there was a moat around it with crocodiles swimming around in it and stuff. As she walked to her throne room, all of her guards and servants bowed to the ground out of respect for her greatness and power. The early morning sun shone brightly through the window of her castle and onto her throne as Styxie trotted into the throne room and sat on her throne and awaited her guest. It didn't take long for the pathetic and pitiable form of another weaker alicorn to crawl towards her. It was Princess Twilight Sparkle, who came to beg once again for Styxie's advice and guidance. Styxie sighed in sexy annoyance as Twilight told her about all the problems she was having running even a small part of Equestria, compared to the much larger kingdom Princess Celestia had given to Styxie. After listening to the lesser princess go on and on about her problems for a very long time, even Styxie's infinite patience ran out. She stood up and waved her horn through the air, instantly solving all of Twilight's problems in an instant, because she was just that much better and more magical than Twilight was. Then she picked up Twilight in her magic and carried her to her bedroom, where she let the lesser unicorn ravage her through the afternoon. Trixie almost couldn't believe how good her writing was. Sure, she always knew she was amazing, but not even she could have imagined that writing would come so naturally to her. This was so easy. How could anyone ever have trouble writing anything? Was it just a personal failing for any author to not be churning out a constant stream of masterpiece quality writing whenever they had free time to spare? Trixie decided that it probably was. Stifling a yawn, she settled into a chair and began to write the next part. Third chapter. Later that evening, Styxie walked out of her bedroom, leaving Twilight alone in bed to reflect on how much worse she was at doing sex than Styxie was. It really wasn't even close, and every pony knew it. Suddenly, Styxie was distracted by a unicorn approaching her. It was her sexy and cute mare friend, Glimlight Stara. The two ponies hurried towards each other and then hugged and sexily kissed. Once they were together, Styxie wanted to grab Glimlight and drag her straight to bed to let her ravage her. But Glimlight whispered that she had a surprise waiting for Styxie and told her to follow her. As Styxie followed her mare friend through the castle, she watched her cute butt sway back and forth sexily. Glimlight wasn't as great or as powerful as Styxie was, of course, but she was a pretty impressive second and certainly better than Twilight Sparkle. Styxie was so distracted thinking about her relationship with Glimlight, she almost didn't notice when her mare friend stopped and held a door open for Styxie to enter. But then Styxie did notice and went to the door. She was very surprised by what was inside. It was Dr. Cabinleron! Styxie was very, very shocked and wondered for a moment if Glimlight had betrayed her. But she hadn't. Dr. Cabinleron had come to apologise for his actions and tell Styxie that her awesome and amazing magical power had been so cool and awesome that he had reformed and was now a good guy. Styxie was happy to hear she had reformed another bad pony and decided to celebrate by inviting Dr. Cabinleron and Glimlight to bed with her. The unicorn and stallion both ravaged her through the night. Trixie yawned and settled deeper into the plush comfort of Starlight's desk chair. Who would have guessed that being the best writer in equestrian history would be so tiring? But if she fell asleep now, wouldn't that be a disservice to every pony who would be robbed of the opportunity to read Trixie's great and powerful story? Of course it would! Doing her best to fight through the exhaustion and persevere, she focused her attention on finishing her epic tale with one last chapter. The fourth and final chapter. Styxie Coolamoon woke up early feeling satisfied and refreshed. She kissed her mare friend good morning and then flew off to Daring Do's home to tell her the good news about Dr. Cabinleron. Flying even faster than last time, she arrived at Daring's house super fast. Daring Do was very excited to see her saviour and lover again and kissed her sexily. When Styxie informed her of Dr. Cabinleron's decision to be a good pony now, Daring was overjoyed. The two flew back to Styxie's castle, Styxie using her great and powerful magic to let Daring Do keep up with her super amazing speed. When they landed at the castle, Doc C and Glimlight hurried out to meet them. Everyone kissed sexily together, and Styxie invited them all back to her bed to celebrate. They agreed, and even Twilight Sparkle joined in as well. Together they all celebrated, and Styxie let all four other ponies ravage her through the day. Starlight Glimmer set Trixie's story back down on her desk, utterly dumbfounded by what she had just read. When she'd arrived back at the castle, ready to yell at her mare friend for skipping out on her job again, she'd found Trixie sound asleep at her desk with this thing written atop it. Having read it over 3 times now, Starlight wasn't sure how to react. Was it a joke? Was it some sort of satire? Or did Trixie honestly believe this was good writing? It was a mystery. When Sunburst arrived home, having had to stay late to cover Trixie's counselor duties, Starlight showed him the story, hoping that maybe he could make some sense of it. He couldn't, of course. What pony could? And so, there the two stood, staring at their still sleeping mare friend, trying to decide what to do with the masterpiece she'd written. Sure, it was ultimately just a bad self-insert fanfic and a poorly written excuse for Trixie to let her OC have sex with a bunch of ponies she found attractive. and yet there was something almost bewitching about it. It was as if Trixie had managed to write something so bad that it nearly broke the reader's mind and planted itself within. Starlight and Sunburst both felt the undeniable urge to share it with other ponies, to force them to attempt to comprehend this mess in the same way they now had to live forever cursed with the knowledge of Trixie's terrible writing, unable to escape that burden until claimed by the sweet release of death. They silently agreed that they'd submit this abomination into Twilight's next contest, and force the princess to deal with the ramifications of whatever happened beyond that. That was for later though. Right now, the two ponies had something far more important to do. Starlight and Sunburst woke Trixie up from her nap, and together the two ponies ravaged her through the night.
Long ago a legend penned, a tale so bold, so grand. A mare of great and powerful dreams with quill in hoof did stand. Her masterpiece, her magnum opus, words of love and might. But future ponies gather now to mock it in the night. Oh, Styxie, Coolamoon, your story's still in bloom. Pass through time like echoes deep inside a hollow room. Though Trixie's pride stood tall, her name etched in the past, the world just laughs and wonders how she thought it ever last. Foals recite the infamous lines with voices full of glee. Professors teach it as a joke in equestrian literary. Daring do in bondage, Twilight pleading at her throne. They read aloud and struggle not to wheeze or break a tone. Oh, Styxie, Coolamoon, your story's still in bloom. Pass through time like echoes deep inside a hollow room. Though Trixie's pride stood tall, her name etched in the past, the world just laughs and wonders how she thought it ever last. Fanfics rise and fanfics fall, yet hers remains the same. A warning to the writers lost in vanity and fame. Some still say it holds a spark, a beauty all its own. But even Trixie in her years won't claim it as her own. So let the scrolls be studied, let the laughter roll on high. For Styxie, Coolamoon will never truly say goodbye. A legacy of nonsense yet enduring all the same. Trixie's great and powerful work still echoes through her name.
Pony Fiction Channel. Also available as a podcast on Spotify. And Izzy Moonbow is best pony, by the way. Fiction. Bro, hoof, comment, subscribe.